Ron DeSantis finally announces he's running for president. Meta is fined for violating privacy laws, and defense contractors are price gouging the military. Then more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Now, I've been thinking, does Wolverine have adamantium teeth as well? He'd be able to bite through anything. Also, Wolverine wouldn't be able to be circumcised. He can't convert to Judaism. What does any of that have to do with the news? Well, I realized America is going to need Wolverine's mutant healing ability to heal the divide in the nation right now. Case in point, earlier this week, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, issued a travel advisory to Black Americans for the state of Florida. They said Black lives can't thrive in Florida, unlike Chicago. And the NAACP wasn't the only ones issuing advisories. Several other organizations, including the Human Rights Campaign, the League of United Latin American Citizens, the Florida Immigrant Coalition, and Equality Florida, also advised people not to travel to and potentially even to move out of Florida, which would be smart if it advised people not to travel to Florida because, well, Florida. But these advisories were issued due to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' attempt to, according to the NAACP, erase Black history and to restrict diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in Florida schools. The NAACP's travel advisory states Florida is openly hostile towards African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ+ individuals. Before traveling to Florida, please understand that the state of Florida devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African Americans and communities of color. DeSantis' press secretary, Jeremy Redfern, responded to this travel advisory saying, as Governor DeSantis announced last week, Florida is seeing record-breaking tourism. This is nothing more than a stunt. Redfern also pointed out that the NAACP's chairman, Leon W. Russell, lives in Tampa, Florida. So he's telling Black people to not come where he lives and to get out if they're already there. Is it just me, or does that sound a little, I don't know, racist? While DeSantis' policies are certainly divisive, saying they're actively putting Black lives in danger might be a bit of a stretch. This feels like part of the narrative that everything is white supremacy. And on that note, apparently even waking up early is white supremacy. This is a real article someone wrote, which means, ironically, if you're woke, you sleep in. Might be time to make a part 2 for the video I did on how everything is white supremacy. But on the bright side, the NAACP's advisory was just issued to Black Americans, so if you're a British Black person, you'll be just fine. Speaking of Black Americans, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, a Republican, announced he was running for president.
Will you join me as messengers of hope, as missionaries that believe that the strength of our ideas can change our nation again?
Wow, that's a very optimistic message. Unfortunately, since Scott's a Black Republican, I'm not terribly optimistic that Democrats won't call him the blackface of white supremacy, like they did when Larry Elder ran in the California governor recall elections in 2021. Yes, even if you're Black, if you have the wrong views, everything is white supremacy! After all, Scott jumped into the race kinda early, and as everyone knows, getting up early is white supremacy. So how did Donald Trump take the news that he had a new opponent in the presidential primary field? Uncharacteristically well. Trump wished Scott good luck. Then he characteristically used this as an opportunity to say that Scott was a big step up from Ron DeSantis, because Trump will find any excuse to insult Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis always eats off fancy plates. You all deserve a candidate who isn't in love with China. Probably the reason Trump keeps attacking DeSantis is because he assumes DeSantis is going to be his biggest competition for the Republican presidential nomination. This is despite the fact that DeSantis never officially declared he was running for president until Wednesday, when DeSantis formally announced his candidacy during a discussion with Elon Musk on Twitter Spaces. It was viewed by so many people that it actually caused technical issues and delayed the delayed announcement's announcement. Wait, so you're telling me Ron DeSantis wants to become the president? No way, I can't believe it. What a surprise. Why did DeSantis wait so long to announce his candidacy? Well, for one, under Florida law, it was illegal for an elected official to run for another office. That was until just last month when the state passed a bill saying Florida politicians could run for office and not resign as long as that office was either the presidency or vice presidency of the United States. Gee, what a lucky coincidence. Another possible reason, according to ethics experts who spoke to the New York Times, DeSantis has had secret donors flying him on their private jets around the country in a sort of pre-campaign campaign. Once he officially declared, he would be required to report these donations. Billionaires are lending their private jets to influential politicians and judges? They must be doing this for only one reason. Politicians and judges are super cool, and everyone wants to be their friend so they can be cool and popular too. Man, Bowling for Soup was right. High school never ends. On the bright side, with Scott and DeSantis running, I'm just happy to see more candidates that aren't in their 70s, which is a sentiment that even Hillary Clinton agrees with. When talking about Joe Biden running for re-election, she had this to say.
His age is an issue, and people have every right to consider it. But, he has this great saying, and I think he's right. Don't judge him by running against the almighty, but against the alternative.
I bet Biden does say that, because running against the alternative was his entire platform. That's all any politician runs on these days. Not, I'm good, but the other side is worse. Here's what society would look like if candidates ran on actual ideas, instead of scaring people into thinking this is what society would look like if you didn't vote for them. Wow, maybe Biden's age isn't the biggest issue after all. More after the break. Welcome back. California, Nevada, and Arizona agreed to cut back on water usage from the Colorado River, a major water source for the three states that's facing lower levels amid a major drought. Well, that's very noble of them, is what I'd say if it weren't for the fact that the states refused to do this until they would potentially be forced to make cuts by the federal government. And the Biden administration offered them $1.2 billion in federal money. Because that's Biden's solution to everything. Throw money at it. There's a grease fire in the White House kitchen. Quick, someone hit an ATM and make it rain. This deal will last through 2026, when current rules for how Colorado River water is shared among the states will expire. What will happen then? Well, I'm sure the states will use this money to plan for a long-term solution to water shortage issues. Because as everyone knows, governments are great with money and long-term planning. Can't believe these states are getting paid $1.2 billion to do something they should have already been doing for years. This is like if I complain to my landlord that my roommate refuses to take out the trash, and my landlord gave him $1.2 billion. Speaking of places covered in trash, New York City. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, almost 500,000 people left New York City between April 2020 and July 2022. That's 5.3% of its population. Many of them traveled south to find warmer climates, more affordable homes, and fewer COVID restrictions. And thousands of grandparents traveled north to heaven, thanks to Andrew Cuomo's policies. How long am I going to keep bringing this up? As long as he keeps not facing consequences for it. And since Cuomo keeps ignoring requests from the House COVID panel to testify, it could be a while. Despite this, New York is still the most populous city in the U.S. But more and more people are traveling south. Maybe that's why the NAACP put out that travel advisory. Leon W. Russell was like, traffic is bad enough already. Every extra minute I spend in the car on my morning commute is white supremacy. Meta, Instagram and Facebook's parent company, received a $1.3 billion fine from the European Data Protection Board after Ireland's Data Protection Commissioner found that the company was transferring user data from the EU and storing it in the US. Processing and storing Europeans' user data on foreign servers violates EU privacy laws. This is the largest fine ever levied by this organization, and Meta was ordered to stop processing European citizens' data in the U.S. within 6 months. Meta said it would appeal this ruling and that without the ability to transfer data across borders, the internet risks being carved up into national and regional silos. The internet becoming a series of silos? That's ridiculous. Everyone knows the internet is a series of tubes. If you're old enough to get this reference, it's almost time for you to schedule a colonoscopy. Honestly, everyone shouldn't worry so much about the privacy of their data when it's being transferred across borders. And they should worry more about Facebook existing solely to sell your private data to advertisers, which is disgusting. Mainly because they refuse to accept my supplement, Chap XL, as a sponsor. Why aren't we good enough for you, Meta? We provide long-lasting energy with short-lasting night terrors. And it's made from all-natural fruits, vegetables, and manatee livers, poached illegally but humanely. And after the break, San Francisco announces their first drag laureate. Welcome back. San Francisco announced their first ever drag laureate who will serve as an ambassador of the city's drag and LGBTQ community. San Francisco Mayor London Breed said, while drag culture is under attack in other parts of the country, in San Francisco we embrace and elevate the amazing drag performers who through their art and advocacy have contributed to our city's history around civil rights and equality. This is an official position with an 18-month term and a $55,000 stipend. Wait, only $55,000? That's less than some drag queens have spent on their wardrobes. Considering San Francisco spent $1.7 million on a toilet, seems more like pandering than empowering. And San Francisco really wants to lift up a group known for elaborate outfits that a lot of people don't want around their kids, then I suggest they also announce the city's first ever furry laureate. The Pentagon revealed it made an accounting error and overvalued aid sent to Ukraine by roughly $3 billion. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the way that the Pentagon was counting it was what's the replacement cost for the equipment we provide, rather than just the actual cost of that equipment. Once you make that adjustment, it turns out we have an additional $3 billion that we can spend to provide even more weapons to Ukraine. There's a lot of issues here. First, your count was off by over $3 billion? And we're supposed to just be okay with that? If I'm off by $3,000, the IRS pops up like a groundhog looking for the shadow of tax fraud. If it finds it, that's 6 more years of prison. Second, you realized you had an extra $3 billion and your first thought is to use it to send even more weapons? The U.S. is broke. America's barreling toward defaulting on its loans with still no debt ceiling deal in place, and spending cuts are one of the main sticking points. When you're broke and you find extra money, you don't waste it on weapons for a friend. You waste it on a PS5 and hope no one you owe money to notices. Maybe it's hard to keep track of how much weapons cost because their prices are so inflated. According to a 60-minute interview with Shay Assad, a former executive vice president and chief contract negotiator for the defense company Raytheon, U.S. defense contractors are price gouging the Defense Department. Assad, who now works as the director of defense pricing for the Department of Defense, sounded the alarm on inflated prices. This led to a Pentagon investigation that revealed some defense companies that typically make a 12 to 15% profit on contracts were actually making a profit of 40%. Assad said, no matter who they are, no matter what company it is, they need to be held accountable. And right now, that accountability system is broken in the Department of Defense. Now, some inflation is understandable. Well, I remember my grandpa telling me how back in his day, he used to be able to bomb an entire village for only a nickel. But some of these companies are making a 40% profit? Wow, I'm shocked that people who make a living creating instruments of death and who push for endless war so they can get even richer off the military-industrial complex might not be the most honorable people. I'm not just mad that they price gouged, but what they price gouged. It's the same equipment we're all familiar with. I'd be cool with them jacking up prices if they made some cool new innovations, like giving soldiers adamantium skeletons, like Wolverines. Only this time, don't forget about the teeth. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/America Uncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube's censorship and demonetization. You can also set a monthly limit. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.